In this video, I'm going to directly compare recreations of arguably the world's most famous golf course on both GSPro and the Golf Club 2019 golf simulators. So stick around until the end of the video to see which simulator you think looks the best. Here we are at the infamous par 3 12th hole, and as you can see from the real life photograph in the bottom corner, each of these simulator representations are pretty spectacular. I start off on the Golf Club 2019 version named Firethorn, and a little push to the right kicks me off the green just as it would do in real life. Every time you begin a round at the famous Georgia Golf Club on GSPro, you're greeted by this inspirational Masters music for a few minutes. I chose to begin this round on the 12th hole, which is why you can still hear it in the background. Back to the golf club, where I thought I had a straightforward chip shot, but as you can see, the notorious greens at this course decided to take it for a little roll. It's okay, there's no biggie, but as I slightly overhit the return putt, the undulations of this green really started to kick in. Man.
Okay, here's a pro tip. The green is where you go.
Anyway, over to GSPro, where I'd successfully landed in a less mountainous part of the 12th green, and I had a relatively simple putt and I made a gimme par. But on the golf club, after putting from the fringe, I eventually walk off with a very ugly double bogey. On to the 13th, where both hole flyovers decide to take you through the trees as they can't seem to navigate the sharp dogleg left. Now I must say, I do prefer the hole flyovers on the Golf Club 2019. They're that bit smoother and a little more crisp compared to the bumpy, sharp turns on GSPro. Although I have had to speed most of the Golf Club flyovers up because they take an age to get to the hole, and you'll get bored pretty quickly if you watch them all at the snail's pace that they're filmed at on the game. This course in real life is extremely green, almost unnaturally green really, it's that well manicured. And maybe it's the video game type graphics of the Golf Club 2019, but I like how it captures those vibrant colours. Now GSPro prides itself in being much more realistic as a golf simulator experience compared to that of a video game which was adapted into a simulator like the Golf Club. But you know what? As realistic as they both look, I think I do prefer the graphics of TGC on this particular course.
I don't know if this has enough.
Maybe it's my computer's video card that isn't quite powerful enough to capture this masterpiece in all of its glory on GSPro though. I'm only running GSPro on high settings and not ultra high, simply because I want the frame rate of this footage to look as smooth as possible to try and do the software the justice that it deserves.
Good stuff.
But one feature of GSPro that I do prefer is the ability to view a heat map on any green, basically to show all of its undulations and how fast each green is. This is particularly helpful on a course like this where if you don't hit the right spot on the green, you could quite easily end up a long way off it. Exactly like what happens with my approach shot here. It might seem a little biased because I'm about to sink a 15-foot birdie putt here, but I do prefer the visual putting aids on the greens in the golf club.
That was nice.
It's a bit of a finicky niggle, I know, but similar to the Shot Tracer, they're a bit more bold and they stand out a little bit more than that on GSPro. But as I've mentioned in previous videos, the addition of the gimme circle around the hole on GSPro is a very nice touch. I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, the water features of the golf club definitely look a little more realistic than those on GSPro. Again, I don't know if this is due to my graphics card not being strong enough to show off the GSPro version in all of its glory, or whether you guys get the same impression as well. I'm going to pause here for a second just so you can witness the crazy first bounce glitch of the golf club that many of its users get very frustrated about.
Nice.
It just flies unrealistically high in the air if you top a shot. It doesn't annoy me too much, but I do get it. Anyway, back to the water.
Swing.
I'll link a previous video in the description below of my comparisons of TPC Sawgrass, where GSPro really blows the golf club out of the water with all of its aquatic detail. But I'm surprised that GSPro's Georgia Golf Club doesn't quite live up to the same standard. The water just looks a little flat, it's a bit brown and kind of like a big puddle rather than a beautifully crafted lake. I'm not taking anything away from the designers of these two courses because I'm fully aware of the time and effort that goes into building them. And let's be honest, like I said before, they're both truly stunning recreations of a golf course that hardly any of us will ever get the opportunity to play in real life. So the fact that some dedicated individuals have built this track for the rest of us to enjoy, my hat goes off to you. Thank you. Anyway, here I am struggling with the undulating greens again on the golf club. One thing that GSPro users do claim is that the short game accuracy is much more realistic than that on TGC. Now I've got to be honest, I haven't noticed a massive difference between the two, but in all fairness, I'd have to say the rollout on the chip shots and the way that putts roll out does feel a little more true to real life on GSPro. But one thing I'm not so sure about is when you lip out a putt or if you hit one slightly too firm on GSPro, as you're going to see on the next hole. The Flyovers on the infamous 16th were similar enough for me to put them side by side so that you can get another perspective and decide which one you prefer. I've even put the first part of the gameplay side by side so you can get an idea of the shot tracer boldness that I mentioned earlier. Now I topped the bunker shot here on GSPro, so it's nothing to do with an unrealistic short game experience, it was just an absolutely terrible shot. As you look at the undulations on the green on TGC and then compare them to practically the opposite putt on GSPro in a moment, you can see how accurate these two course recreations truly are. I make a gimme bogey on the golf club and I'll leave you with the frustrating lip out feature of GSPro that I mentioned earlier. Check out this video next to compare how the amazing TPC Sawgrass looks on both GSPro and the Golf Club 2019, and I'll see you in the next one.